Hi, I just love that tag that says it's Church at 434 in Motion, don't you? I mean, you got to hear that and see that, and the music's is there. So now you're expecting to get the latest release of what is going to be the next show for the Church at 434 in Motion. You're getting ready to enter a special series. This is an intro that we're creating just for the church release. We're getting ready to talk about the fear virus. And so there's a series of episodes that are coming up where we're going to talk about fear. These were created as a resource for Face the Fear, but we wanted to release them for you as well because you sometimes have to deal with fear, and there are other people out there that you know that have to deal with fear. And so we're getting ready to enter to what is a series of back-to-back releases that will come out on our regular release days that talk all about fear. And so we wanted you to know that. And so each day on the church release, on the Church 434 in Motion, you're going to hear this all over again. It's not a rerun. It's just me giving you the tag to let you know that as soon as I'm quiet, there's going to be a brand new screen that comes up to give you the title of the new episode, and we want you to enjoy it, and hopefully it's a great resource that will help you deal with the virus of fear in your own life, as well as helping others in their life. Okay, that's it. I'm done talking. Let's get on with the new episode. Hi, welcome back to our series called Fear Virus. We're looking at how to have a holy terror, or a healthy terror, if you will. And we've been looking at some things that have to do with faith that help us as we face fear. Now again, we have been using the disclaimer that if you're not a person of faith, then a lot of this conversation may not be as relevant to you or may not be working like you want it to be. But when we get to our last episode, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But I also am pretty well convinced if you're still watching this or you're catching this particular episode, that by now, if you're not a person of faith, you quit listening a long time ago, and what we're saying doesn't matter to you at all. So I think that you must be interested, or you still wouldn't be here. And so we come back to what we're going to talk about today. I mean, we talked about seeing things differently, hearing things differently, and doing things differently. We've talked about no matter how bad it gets, stay close to Savior. We ask you to take a look at the monsters that you got going on in your own life. And so today I want to talk to you about you have to keep doing what you're supposed to be doing no matter how bad it gets. Back in verse 17 and 18 of the passage we've been looking at, it says, "So that through me the message might be fully proclaimed and all the Gentiles might hear it, and I was delivered from the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom." This is, again, Paul talking about the fact that he was in a bad way. He was standing before a judge in an environment where a magistrate was looking at him. He was having to give account for what he was doing. He was by himself, but he said the Lord was with him, so Jesus was with him. But he was also then making some bold statements about the fact that he was going to keep doing what he was doing. I mean, in other words, he's getting in trouble for preaching, in essence, and he's saying that I'm just going to keep on preaching and just pray that the message that I'm going to share will continue to resonate. I mean, I'm going to keep on doing it. The fact that they got after me doesn't scare me, doesn't mean that I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing, doesn't mean I'm going to stop being what I'm supposed to be. In other words, I'm going to keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing, no matter how bad it gets. That's interesting, isn't it? Because, see, our culture teaches us that, when it starts to get bad, we just quit. When the going gets tough, it's easier to quit. The old phrase, "the tough get going," well, that's great to say, but man, finding tough people that want to keep going, that's not so easy. I mean, case in point, think about best-selling author John Grisham. If you know about his life story, he wasn't always a best-selling author that would get $1 million plus, for every book that he writes in advance, and then his job is just to write a book every day, and then he releases one every year and a half. Great author, one of my favorites. His first book was a book that took place in a courtroom in Mississippi, where, of course, that's where he was practicing law. It was a book called Time to Kill. Time to Kill was a book that once it was written, nobody wanted to publish it, so he self-published it, put the copies of the book in his trunk, and would drive around on the weekends and go to bookstores, do book signings, drop books off, and let people have a few of the copies here to share with somebody else. And it was somewhere in the midst of him selling that book, that he decided, if I'm going to be a writer, I need to keep writing. And so while he was still trying to sell a book that he was paying to publish himself, self-published book, he started writing another book. Eventually, those books that he was carrying around in his trunk, well, he had to throw them all out because they got wet, because his trunk leaked, because he was driving around. And so a lot of those books that he was using in those early days, Time to Kill, they all got trashed because, again, they became wet books. They weren't usable anymore. So then he was kind of down to just a bare few of those books. But the second book that he wrote, it hit. Publisher picked it up, took a chance. And so they published a book called The Firm. Now, The Firm would go on to become a major motion picture with Tom Cruise in the starring role. A Time to Kill, which was his first novel, that nobody wanted to publish, by the way, was then bought by the same publisher and also went on to become a best-selling book, also went on to become a movie. But that was actually the first book that he ever wrote, Time to Kill. How easy would it have been for Grisham, after no one wanted to publish A Time to Kill and no one wanted to deal with A Time to Kill, and they said it just wasn't good enough, wasn't enough excitement in it, it wasn't going to resonate, it was never going to sell nationwide, it was more of a regional kind of release. What if he just said, I'm a lawyer, I don't need this, I don't need this extra work, why would I want to write in my off time, why would I want to go to these book events, why would I want to try to do this, I don't need this, I've already got a career. What if he had quit? He didn't, because he knew that he was supposed to be doing what he was doing. In other words, he felt compelled, called, qualified, trying to be the best writer he could be. Paul, in jail, in trouble, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing what I'm supposed to do. In our life, no matter what the terrible situation is, no matter what the fear that you're facing is, you still have to do what you're supposed to do. Being afraid doesn't give you the license to stop. Being afraid doesn't give you a license to walk away and just quit. Being afraid doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done. And what happens to us is sometimes we lose sight of the task we're supposed to do because we become so distracted by the things that scare us. And we allow the things that scare us to become bigger than the things we're supposed to do. And so that's why I say to you that if you learn to see things differently, you learn to hear things differently, you learn to do things differently, then no matter what, you keep doing what you're supposed to do, because sometimes at the end of the day, that's all you have. It doesn't eliminate the things that make you afraid. It doesn't change the things that can cause a terror, but it does take the terror and bring it back into a way that's manageable so that you can do something with it. And when I say you, I mean you and God, keeping Jesus close. Go back to an earlier episode and you can check on that. And so we'll continue this conversation in our next edition.